New to bolt action? Here's the terrain every player needs. Most new bolt action players spend everything they've got in their army. Then they turn up to the first game, push the models around a near empty table and wonder why nothing works the way they expected. That table is wrong, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly what right kind of looks like. I've been playing bolt action for over 10 years, and the single thing I see trip up beginners more than army building, more than list writing, more than even learning the rules is not understanding how terrain changes this game. So today we're doing a full build and review of Sarissa Precision CMYK World War Europe 28mm terrain range. I've got their terrace shot, that's product WW002, and I'm going to walk you through the complete build, give you an honest verdict on whether it's worth your money, and then, and this is the bit most terrain reviews skip entirely, I'm going to show you exactly how to set up a proper 4x4 table for a 500 point game for the one box challenge. So if you're just starting out, stay with me to the end. That table setup section could completely change how you experience this game. Right, let's start with what Sarissa Precision actually makes and what CMYK means, because I think this trips a lot of new players up. Sarissa Precision are a UK based company based in Derbyshire, and they produce laser cut MDF terrain kits. Now, MDF terrain used to mean plain brown cardboard looking models that you'd have to paint from scratch. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what Sarissa have done with their CMYK range is take that laser cut MDF and print full colour directly onto the surface before cutting. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow and key black. It's the same 4-colour printing process your home printer uses. And what that means for you is that you pull these pieces out of the box and they already look like a European village building. The stone texture, the crack in the wall, the weathered slate roof tiles, all of that is printed. You're not painting this from scratch. The range we are looking at today is the World War Europe 28mm collection, and specifically the Terrace Shop, product code WW002. This is your classic 2-storey European terrace building with the shop front on the ground floor. Think Normandy, Belgium, the Netherlands. Think every bolt action tournament table you've ever seen in a photograph, quite probably. What's in the box? Laser cut MDF sheets, pre-printed in full colour, all tabs and slots, no cutting required, simple, clean, no fuss, and just build. Right, the build. And this is where most people get it consistently wrong when they first try MDF terrain. The number one mistake is going straight in with superglue. Don't do it. Superglue sets in seconds and MDF is unforgiving. You've got one shot, and if anything's out of alignment, that's it. Instead, use PVA wood glue. It gives you working time, it lets you adjust, and it creates a stronger long-term bond with MDF than superglue does. Any standard wood PVA glue from a hardware shop will do the job. Now, the Sarissa kits use a tab and slot system. Every piece slots into another piece, and the first thing I do every time without exception is a dry fit. I push every single piece together without any glue just to check it makes sense and I know what goes where. With the Terrace Shop, that's a wee job. It's not complicated. You've got 4 walls, the roof panels, the chimney and the floor levels. It all clicks together pretty intuitively. But do the dry fit, trust me. Now, one thing worth knowing, and I want to be upfront about this, MDF does produce dust when it's laser cut. The edges will have a slight burnt smell and the fine dust in the slots. Before you glue anything, run through the slots with a cocktail stick or a small file just to clear out any debris, and this makes the fit a bit cleaner and your pieces will sit flush. So, if you remember one thing from this video, remember this about MDF terrain assembly. Dry fit first, clear the slots, then PVA. The sequence will save you every single time. For the CMYK range specifically, because of the printed surface, keep your glue away from the printed face if you can. Apply to the MDF edges and tabs only. The print is sealed, but there's no point in risking a glue smear on an already finished surface. Build time on the terrace shop, well, that's about 45 minutes if you take it steady and let the PVA tack up between sections. You could rush it, I wouldn't. The result is worth doing properly. And here's what you end up with. No painting required, no washes, no dry brushing, no base coating. If you want to add extra weathering, some static grass at the base, a wash over the stonework, absolutely go for it and it'll look brilliant. But straight out of the box, these are table ready. For a complete beginner, that kind of matters. Right, what's my honest verdict on the Sarissa CMYK range? Well, let's start with what's genuinely impressive, the print quality. I've handled a lot of terrain over the years, resin casts, hard plastics, foam board, plain painted MDF, and the level of detail that Sarissa are printing onto these kits is excellent for the price point. The crack effects on the walls, the individual tile texture on the roofs, the variation in stonework, at gaming level, which is roughly about 2 feet across the table, this looks the part, it really does. The colour palette for World War Europe range is pitch perfect for bolt action. Muted purples, lavenders, weathered greens, exactly the faded war-worn European aesthetic you want. These buildings don't look new, they look like they've been standing in a village that's about to become a battlefield. And when I used these at Bolt Action Attrition Tournament at Angus Wargames Club, they drew comments from multiple players. Structural integrity is solid. Once the PVA glue has fully cured, and I do mean fully, give it at least 24 hours before gaming with it, these pieces are sturdy. I've had MDF buildings knocked off tables at tournaments and picked them up completely fine. MDF is not as fragile as people think once it's properly glued. Now, the honest cons, because there are some. First, storage. MDF terrain doesn't stack and nest the way foam or plastic terrain does, and the edges can get dinged if you're not careful, so box them with foam inserts or wrap them for transport. It's minor, but it's worth knowing. Second, it is ultimately a flat packed construction. The Sarissa print quality does a lot of the work to disguise this, and at gaming distance, nobody cares. But if you put your face right down to table level, you're looking at a printed panel rather than a cast model. At arm's length, no issue whatsoever. Just manage your expectations. Now, third, and this is actually useful information for bolt action specifically. The roofs on most MDF buildings are lift-off panels, and in bolt action, figures can occupy and you can place figures inside the upper floor, which is actually very functional for the game mechanic. The mechanism is simple, lift off rather than hinged, but for gaming purposes, it works exactly as it needs to. Now, value for money. This is where the CMYK range really earns its reputation. You're getting a table-ready, full-colour European building for less than the price of a single Warlord Games infantry box. For a new player building their first terrain collection from scratch, that is genuinely strong as a value proposition. I don't know of a better starting point at this price point. My verdict: if you're new to bolt action and want terrain that looks great, builds in under an hour and won't break the bank, then Sarissa Precision CMYK World War Europe range is exactly where I'd point you to. And why not like and subscribe down below while you're at it to be instantly updated on what I put out next. Right, now we get to the section I really want to talk about, because this is where most beginner resources fall completely short. Building terrain is one thing, setting up a table correctly is a completely different skill. And at 500 points, which is exactly where the one box challenge lives, you've got a very specific tactical environment that needs a very specific terrain setup. Let me be direct about this. A bad terrain setup at 500 points can ruin games, and if the table is too empty, the first unit to fire wins everything and nobody else gets to move. If the table is too cluttered, nobody can shoot at all and the game becomes a car park. Both of those outcomes are kind of wrong, and both of them are quite common. So here's how to think about a 4x4 table for 500 point bolt action. Principle 1. 1/3 coverage. You want roughly 1/3 of your total table surface to have some form of terrain feature on it. Not all blocking terrain, not wall-to-wall buildings, just covered. Fields, hedges, walls, roads and buildings together should account for about a third of the visual space. Any less and the game becomes a shooting gallery, any more and it becomes a brawl with no space for tactics. At 500 points, you've typically got somewhere between 4 and 8 units per side. Small forces, infantry sections, possibly a light gun or a vehicle depending on the list. The table needs to match that scale. You're not recreating Margate Garden here, you're recreating a skirmish on the edge of a village, for example. Principle 2, the Four Quadrant Framework. Divide your table mentally into 4 quadrants, 2 foot by 2 foot each. In any effective 500 point table, you want at least one terrain feature per quadrant. For the one box challenge specifically, where the forces are small and lists are almost always infantry heavy, buildings are your primary cover sources. They're as much a game piece as your troops are. Principle 3. Build around a central focal point. The centre of a 4x4 table is where 500 point games are decided. Both players converge towards the middle as the game progresses, and whoever controls the centre late in the game usually controls the result. Place your most significant terrain feature, your largest building, your terrace row, in or around the centre of the table. This creates a focal point that both players have to make a decision about from turn 1. Do I advance and control it? Do I go around it? Do I anchor there and defend? That central building creates the game. Without it, both players just trade shots across open ground. Principle 4. Distribute, don't cluster. And this is where most people get it consistently wrong. Don't put all your terrain on one side of the table and leave the other half bare. Both players need access to cover from the first move. If one side has a building and hedges and the other has open ground, one player is immediately at a significant disadvantage from deployment. Distribute your terrain so that both long table edges have roughly equivalent cover available. A practical one box challenge setup using Sarissa CMYK buildings. Step 1. Place 2 or 3 terrace buildings forming a partial street scene in or near the table centre. Even slightly off centre is fine. You want the buildings to create a central disputed zone, not perfectly divide the table. Step 2. Place low walls or hedges along at least 2 table edges, giving both players some deployment zone cover. In bolt action at 500 points, being caught in the open during the first order dice draw can be catastrophic, and both players should have a wall or a hedge to hide behind before the shooting actually starts. Step 3. Scatter smaller terrain pieces, rubble piles, sandbags, road sections, into the spaces between buildings and the edges. These break up the open ground and create the infantry channels your models will actually move through. And that's your minimum viable table. Both players have access to cover, there's a contested central objective space, and there's enough open ground that range weapons like the Bren gun or the MG42 still have a meaningful role. You're not just pushing infantry from building to building with everybody in hard cover the entire time. One final point on table setup that I would make is height variance. If all your terrain is the same height, all ground level walls and single story features, the table plays completely flat. The moment you introduce a 2-story building like the Sarissa Terrace Shop, you've created a dominant high ground feature that changes every decision on the table. High ground with line of sight across a 4x4 board is powerful at any points level. At 500 points, where you've got fewer units to contest it, controlling that upper floor can decide an entire game sometimes. A full infantry section in an upper floor with a light machine gun covering the central approach is an extremely strong position at this points level. Your opponent has to deal with it or concede the centre. Think of every piece of terrain as a decision point. Every terrain piece should be creating a question for both players. The Sarissa buildings do this brilliantly, precisely because they are realistic scale two-storey European structures. They block ground level line of sight, they create upper floor advantage, and they're large enough to shelter a full infantry section. For the one box challenge format, that's exactly what you need. So let me bring this all together. The Sarissa Precision World War Europe 28mm range is, in my view, the single best entry point for new bolt action players building their terrain collection. The build is accessible for complete beginners, the print quality means table ready results with no painting required, and the price point is honest. And the buildings are the right scale, the right aesthetic, and the right size for competitive bolt action play. Is it perfect? Well, nothing perfect is. The MDF storage limitations are real, and if you're examining it at very close range, you'll see the flat pack nature of it. But for the vast majority of bolt action players playing at game distance on a gaming table, this terrain does exactly what you want it to do. And when I look at what it cost me against what it delivers on the table, I'd definitely buy it again. Now, if you want to pick up the Sarissa Precision CMYK World War Europe range for yourself, that's a mouthful, the link is going to be in the description below. It'll be beside my official Warlord Games affiliate link where you can get Sarissa Precision as well. It doesn't cost you anything extra to click it, but it does help support the channel, which I do genuinely appreciate. And if the table setup section was useful, that is exactly what we do here at War HQ. Not just reviews, not just unboxings, the tactical thinking behind why things work the way they do. The channel exists to help you win with the army you actually want to play, and a properly set up table is all part of that. If you're working through your first 500 point one box challenge build right now, drop a comment below and tell me what army you're taking. I'd love to see what people are putting together. And if you've got questions about terrain rules and bolt action, when buildings count as hardcover, how upper floors work with fire arcs, all of that good stuff, let me know in the comments and I'll cover it in a future video, because that is a rabbit hole well worth going down. So take care guys, and we'll talk to you again soon.